Welcome to the Unlist, guys. Today I'm going to do the age-old debate of designer versus niche. This is a debate that's been raging ever since the advent of online fragrance-themed forums. So this debate has raged since Badger and Blade, since Makeup Alley, since Base Notes formed in 2000, which, by the way, y'all need to start using Base Notes more because I think it's better and the site needs you. And if you really enjoy using Base Notes, if you find it as good of a community as I do, you may want to consider supporting them via Patreon for only $3 a month to keep the lights on. Okay, that's all they want to do is keep the lights on. Okay, so, but yeah, since Base Notes, and then of course, if you're a Fragrantica user, that's okay. You're welcome in my house. You know, you can leave Fragrantica at the door, but you are welcome in my house. Okay, so you'll know that the debate, it just rages on forever. Designer, it's for plebes, it's for the hoi polloi, it's for the unwashed masses, for the frag bros, the people that only care about compliments and sex and money and power, you know, and all. The niche, that's for snobs, it's for hipsters. It's for people who have their thumbs up their butt to think they're better than everyone else. It's all about being artsy and fartsy and sophisticated, but it all just stinks and smells like animalics and it's terrible, and you'll never get compliments and it all costs too much. Okay. This is an illusion, guys, especially now, especially in the year of our Lord 2023. It's really an illusion, guys. It's super not real. Maybe like 20 or 30 years ago, it was real. Before the first, economic crisis, the Great Depression Part 2, which we don't want to call it one, but it really was one, So back then, I mean, in 80s and 90s, there was still a healthy diaspora of fragrances. You had your drugstore stuff, your big macro brands, your big cosmetic brands, Elizabeth Arden, okay, Coty, what else? Revlon, okay, mail order stuff like Avon and Oriflame and Mary Kay. They're all at the same price point. Prince Machiavelli, Charles the Ritz before they went out of business, MEM, Schulten, shall I continue? Okay, all the same. So that was for the working class folks, the folks who lived in apartments or they had small townhouses in the city, kind of folks I grew up around. Drove used cars, they never bought new cars. Bought their clothes from places like Ross and TJ Maxx, where they probably bought the perfumes too. But those brands were for those folks. They sold Avon door to door for some side cash so Timmy could have a better Christmas, yada, yada, yada. The designers were for the middle class, okay? They were for the middle management folks. They were for the folks who wore the white collars to work. They drove the new cars, okay? They worked in the offices, cubicles, they sat at a desk, stenographers, whatever, clerical work. They worked at banks, okay? They bought the Chanels, they bought the Diors, they bought the Giorgios, they bought the Oscar de la Renta stuff, they bought the YSLs, okay? They bought the higher end stuff like Estee Lauder and Helena Rubinstein. They were still cosmetic brands, but they were upper market ones. So like Revlon and Arden is kind of where you got your foot in the door, and then once you made money, you were buying Estee Lauder or you were buying Clinique or something like that, which is all the same company anyway. And then up from that, the true niche brands, effectively, at least back then, very small footprint. So we're talking Guerlain, we're talking Caron, we're talking Houbigant before they collapsed and then reopened later on. We're talking brands like L'Artisan Parfumeur, like the early Creeds. We're talking Sisley, we're talking Marc de Moriandre, we're talking Maitre Parfumé et Gantier, which is actually the same owner and founder as L'Artisan. It's Jean Laporte, rest in peace. He also founded Sisley. He just kept making new companies. Leaving one and starting another. First Sisley, then L'Artisan, then Maitre. And then we had Etro, stuff like that. Okay, those were the early niche brands. Diptyque was a really early niche brand. The kind of brands that literally only sold in those fragrance boutiques that were in expensive parts of town. So like Beverly Hills Perfumery, for example, in Los Angeles, places like that would carry these brands. Or they'd have their own stores that were branded as them, their own brand stores. And typically one location, just one. Creed at one point only had their one Paris boutique. Diptyque at one point only had their one boutique. Only the one. Serge Lutens sold out of that one boutique. Le Royal Palais, Shiseido, that one. And they still had the boutique, it's still there, but initially it was under Shiseido, then he spun off into his own brand later. But sold everything right out of that boutique. There wasn't, you weren't seeing these bottles in every Macy's. You weren't seeing these bottles in every major department store. Maybe the flagship of a chain, so the flagship Neiman Marcus would have some, the flagship Nordstrom, the flagship Macy's, okay, maybe those, but that's it, nowhere else. So we're talking New York and LA, we're talking London, we're talking Paris, that's it. Maybe Tokyo, all right, that's it. That was niche. But now, fast forward, here we are, 20, 30, 40 years removed from that. And there's not much of a middle class anymore. Because if you didn't have your job sent overseas, especially if you live in the West, this argument only really applies to Western culture anyway. In terms of nations that have only recently developed a sense of modernity and sense of economic stability within the last 20 years, they're probably looking at us like, man, this is some first world shit right here. They're probably so angry, they're not even watching the video. They've already gotten disgusted at me and tuned out. And I don't blame you. This is strictly a first world. Designer versus niche is a very first world problem anyway. So if having ready access to running water and electricity and internet is a new phenomenon to you, you probably don't want to be watching this video. You'll just get angry. And you have every right to be angry. Trust me. I understand. So, but, in the West, the jobs went overseas. They went to China. They went down south to where the economies were weaker and the value of the currency of the outgoing business was stronger. So that's what happens. So then our middle classes disappeared. Then it gets worse because now it's like, all right, well, now we can't outsource anymore because those economies have too much money now. So now we just got to automate. Let's make machinery. Let's make AI. So now the jobs are being automated. So the people are just being outright displaced altogether. It's not like they can even find another job. There's just no job for them. So now you've got all these folks living in campers and tents and vans down by the river, like Matt, the motivational speaker from Saturday Night Live, falling through tables and stuff. That's where we are in 2023. So there's no middle class. There's just everyone who's just struggling to keep their head above water, and then the golden children up here that are pulling the strings of society in a very Randian sort of way, in a very Atlas Shrugged kind of way. That's the society we live in now. In Russia, they call them oligarchs. Over here in America, we just call them Warren Buffett and Elon Musk and Bill Gates, right? So, or career politicians is another one. But you get my point. That's where we are. So, fragrance is a luxury. Fragrance has always been a luxury. And I'm not trying to make this an economic lesson, but I have to impart a little bit of an economic lesson for you to understand why there is no distinction between designer and niche anymore. So you need to have some context. So I'm giving you the context now. So buckle down, okay? We're like, what, how many minutes we're in? We're in like almost 9 minutes in. Buckle down. It's worth it. The payoff is coming, I promise you. Don't touch that dial, okay? So when the market was like this, and you had your Revlons and your Ardens down here, and then your Chanels and Dior's in the middle, and then celebrity stuff was kind of all scattered around. Your Caron and your Guerlain, and then your Creed and stuff up here. But these people up here are still up here. Yeah, the numbers have gone higher because of inflation, but they're still, in terms of socioeconomic and station, social hierarchy, the amount of disposable income they have versus what they have to expend to live, their actual living expenditures, their rent, their bills versus what they make, they're still in the same place they were 30, 40 years ago. They haven't moved. However, the bottom has gotten bigger and the middle class has gone up. So you're compressing the economic diversity. So the difference between the middle and the upper class is not as great anymore. So everything down here just gets more expensive. And more expensive, they sell, altogether they sell less of it. You know, from a volume standpoint, they sell less of it, but they sell more of it to less people. And that's the problem. So we are seeing nowadays, designers keep going up in price while the quality doesn't really change, or in some cases the quality gets worse. The variety gets worse. They all start smelling more and more alike, but they start costing, you know, 10 years ago, Bleu de Chanel was like 85 bucks. Now it's like $115. And it's the same bottle of Bleu de Chanel it was 10 years ago. It might actually be a little bit inferior ingredients-wise. So to cut costs, to make more money per bottle, because they're selling less bottles overall. So they gotta make more money on every bottle. So if this is designer and then this is niche, you know, the exclusive, the fancy, the artistic, you know, the enlightened and ennobled stuff here. Here are the plebeian hoi polloi stuff. Well, guess what? It's like, I'm coming up, so you better get this party started. I'm coming up, I'm coming, like that, right? So now it's like this. Here's pink. Pink is your designer fragrance, okay? Up here is the fancy hoi polloi, you know, no, not hoi polloi, the hoity-toity, the fancy hoity-toity up here. And here's the, they're starting to touch hands now, aren't they? So this is where we are. This is where we were 20 years ago. 30 years ago, we were here. Now we're here, okay? This is where we are now. So this is why the designer versus niche argument no longer makes sense. Because designer fragrances, even at their entry level, are still at luxury prices. And it's only getting worse. Every year they're going to go up another $5–10 bucks. So I guarantee you, Bleu de Chanel and all the other ones, Dior Sauvage, are going to be like 125 bucks, 130 bucks, probably by 2025, 26. Okay, that's what a bottle of Tom Ford, which was considered a higher end designer, would cost 5 years ago. Meanwhile, that's going to be $200. Meanwhile, you know, back in Gotham City, the niche fragrances, okay, okay, Gotham City, a bottle of Diptyque, the basic eau de toilette, not the eau de parfum, is still like 150 bucks. Still the same. So you're running up against the phenomenon where it's like, I can spend $140 for a bottle of Y by YSL. Or I can spend just $10 more, and have an actual niche fragrance. Okay? Oh, I've got niche now. You might think that's a deal, that a $10 upgrade to a niche fragrance, but then you have to actually smell the niche fragrances too, okay? You have to smell all the Byrettos, all the Le Labos, all the Diptyques, okay, all the Frederic Malls. And you have to ask yourself, is that really an upgrade, you know? Smell something like XS Pour Homme by Paco Rabanne, released in 1993, and smell Geranium Odorata by Diptyque, released like a few years ago. Qualitatively, do they smell different from each other? They're both heavily focused on geranium, correct? You know, one is more geranium-centric, the Geranium Odorata, while, you know, the other one has more abstract material, has mint and stuff like that in it. But my point stands. They're not qualitatively that much different from each other, are they? You know? So, once more, designer versus niche. Is there a versus? They're all on the same team now. Like I said, we all lose. In this fight, no one comes out on top. Especially not when you consider that a lot of these niche brands now are in major department stores. And I'm not talking flagships where there's only one store that has the line, like 20 or 30 years ago. I'm talking like, it's gotten to the point now where like every Nordstrom has Creed. Every Nordstrom has Parfum de Marly. Every Nordstrom has Diptyque, okay? So if you want the upper crusty stuff, the $800 bottles, the $1,000 bottles, Spirit of Dubai, Raja Dove, Royal Crown. That stuff, which is for the true millionaires, the real big ballers, they're going to go to the one store kind of businesses like your Harrods, like your Bergdorf Goodman, like your Bloomingdale's, the kind of places you go to shop because you want to be seen shopping there. We're right back to that 19th century concept of conspicuous consumption. We're right back to that 19th century concept of being seen as a spendthrift makes you a higher position below someone else who has to scrimp every penny they make just to be able to eat, right? You can throw the money away and not care. They could sell you a paper bag for $1,000, and it's literally just a paper bag, but it has the word Supreme on it. So you put the word Supreme on it, and it's $1,000. And someone's going to flip out because you bought that. Meanwhile, I've got my paper bag from Kroger over here that's like 5 cents. But they're the same paper bag. They come from the same paper mill, guys. Same one. So that's where I am with this designer versus niche argument. We even got designers with tiers now. We've got designers that have different levels. So you've got your freaking $120, $140 Chanels. Then you have your $350, $400 Chanels. So you literally have situations now being set up where you've got a bottle of Chanel that literally costs more than some niche brands do, The Chanel costs more than the Maison Francis Kurkdjian does. And here's the kicker. To show that it's all just collusion anyway, it's all collusion. Maison Francis Kurkdjian, he's a perfumer that I respect, so this is no disrespect to the man himself. I like his fragrances, but Maison Francis Kurkdjian is owned by LVMH, who also owns Dior, and Frederic Malle, and he is now the master house perfumer for Dior. So the guy who's making fragrances for Dior, and his own brand is owned by the same conglomerate as Dior, also has a niche brand, And it's like, okay, so, and all the materials are coming from the same oil houses, because Alberto Morillas is a senior perfumer for Firmenich, but he also has his own niche brand called Meisensier, which sources all their materials from Firmenich. So you see, it's all just a game of grab ass here, isn't it? There's not a difference anymore. So designer versus niche is an argument that needs to be buried because it doesn't exist. The designer versus niche argument is invalid because there's no such thing. They're all just the same mass market pseudo-luxury fragrances now that are serving a shrinking demographic of people that individually have more money to spend. Per person, they spend more money on fragrances, but every year there's less and less of them. And that's what's happening. Now, if you unplug from the matrix, okay, you take the red pill and see how far the rabbit hole goes, and then Morpheus, teaches you kung fu and gives you all this crazy stuff, and you get all these leather jackets, and you look really cool and stuff, and you're like, whoa, I know kung fu. You do all that stuff, you unplug the matrix, and you step outside into the real world. Then you see what the true niche is, which is all the artisanal brands, Arige Lador, Bortnikov, Slumber House, Andy Tower, Offery, Darren Allen perfumes, Querelle perfumes, Shelter and Perfume, Clandestine Laboratories, Ensar Oud, Sultan Pasha. That's the true niche these days. But these are all individual creators who don't sell in Nordstrom. Even the higher end ones like Neiman Marcus. Barney's is no longer around, so they're not even part of this discussion. But you're not going to find these individual creators selling their stuff in Neiman Marcus. You won't find Darren Allen or Arige Lador in Neiman Marcus. You won't find it in Harrods. You won't find it in Selfridges. You won't find it in Le Bon Marché or the Burlington Arcade. You won't, okay? You won't find them there. So that's my answer. Designer versus niche. It's an argument that's been raging for as long as there's been a fragrance community, but it's an argument that no longer makes sense to have. And hopefully you agree with me. If you don't, you can politely tell me why you don't. And this has been The Unlist, and thanks for watching.